Hi guys, hope you guys are good. Well, the President Cyril Ramaphosa on Thursday signed the expropriation bill into law. The bill allows for the expropriation of land with no compensation if it's in the interest of the public or for public purposes. Although the bill was adopted by the National Assembly in 2020, it was opposed by the DA and some civil society groups. In a statement, the presidency said the bill allows for local, provincial, and national authorities to expropriate land in the public interest of varied reasons that seeks, among others, to promote inclusively and access to natural resources. The presidency added that property cannot be appropriated without it being in the public interest. The bill states that expropriation can only take place if an attempt has been made at reaching an agreement around the acquisition of land. An expropriation authority is therefore obliged to enter into negotiation with the owner of a property required for such purposes, said the presidency. An expropriation authority must also attempt to reach agreement on the acquisition of the property before resorting to expropriation, except in circumstances where the right to use property temporarily is taken on an urgent basis terms of a provision in the legislation. Reacting to the news on X, ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula said the bill will ensure land expropriation is done fairly while balancing the need for land and reform with property rights. The legislation marks a significant step in the government effort to address historical land inequalities and promote equitable land redistribution, he added. However, Bernie van Zyl, the spokesperson of farming unions, said the expropriation bill will negatively affect investor confidence and economic stability in South Africa. This decision signaled a serious attack on the foundation of property rights, threatening not only farmers but all South Africans, he stated. TLU also said food security in the country would be at risk if the land on which we grow food is expropriated without the necessary capacity to manage it productively. Millions of South Africans will bear the consequences through rising food prices and potential food shortage. Well, also there's a lot of argument on Twitter that is well known as X, and there's a lot of people that don't agree with this. And I'm just going to leave the screenshots of who are these people and what are the disagreement about. You have to read it for yourself and tell me what you think about this.
On the left, there are calls for the government to seize land held by white South Africans, putting serious pressure on President Ramaphosa's government. For white farmers, these calls for expropriation without compensation are familiar. They evoke the violence of government-mandated seizures of white-owned farms in neighboring Zimbabwe nearly 2 decades ago under Robert Mugabe. And for many, the debate stirs up fears that South Africa could fall to economic devastation like its neighbor to the north. Emotions about land reform run high and misinformation abounds. But here are the facts. Expropriation without compensation has happened before in South Africa. In 1913, the government passed the Natives Land Act. Back then, it grabbed 87% of arable land for whites and corralled black South Africans onto reserves where they had no individual ownership rights. Black livelihoods were destroyed. Today, not enough has changed. Of all the agricultural land owned by individuals across the country, 72% is owned by whites, who make up just 9% of the population. 4% of that land is owned by black South Africans, who make up 79% of the population. Nelson Mandela pledged that 30% of South African land held by whites would be distributed to poor black citizens after apartheid. But progress is painfully slow. It's not hard to see why. Land reform is disruptive in a Robin Hood sort of way. As The Economist notes, It involves the government grabbing land from the relatively well-off and doling it out to the poor. This often involves a fight. Take China. In 1949, after the Communist Revolution, the government began grabbing land from landlords who were the victims of brutal violence. Almost half the country's arable